And joining us now for the AARP Consumer Alert is Karen Morgan, member of the Executive Council of AARP Maryland, and Laurel Peltier, a AARP utility advocate. Laurel and Karen, thank you so much for joining us. We want to talk about saving money on utility bills, which is important for everybody, but especially, Karen, for people on fixed incomes.
Exactly. I mean, especially when you're retired and your income is fixed, you don't want to be surprised by unexpected increases in your utilities. It's not like utilities are optional. You have to have electricity and or gas if you're using gas or whatever your utilities are, so that you can have a good quality of life, so that you can eat and be comfortable in your home. So, yeah, you need to keep track of those utility prices that come from either the main utilities in Maryland or via third-party energy suppliers. And I'll just say there are several main utilities that operate in Maryland. Pepco, that operates mostly in the D.C. area, BG&E, that operates mostly in Baltimore City and the surrounding suburbs and counties in or near Baltimore City, Delmarva Power, that operates mostly on the Eastern Shore, SMECO, or Southern Maryland Energy Cooperative, that operates in Southern Maryland, and then Potomac Edison Company, which operates mostly in Western Maryland.
Laurel, maybe it's a good idea to step back. Not everybody knows exactly how this works. We have a partially deregulated energy market, right?
Yes. So as we were talking about before, in 1999, our state deregulated its energy market. And for everyday consumers, the way we see that is we can choose between our regulated utility as a supplier of electricity and gas, or these third-party suppliers. And you might recognize them. They sometimes visit you at your door if you live in an urban area, or say Sam's Club, BJ's, Walmart, and a nice salesperson will walk up to you and say, hey, do you want to, they have two main sales points. Do you want to save on your BG&E bill, your utility bill, or their other big sales point is, would you like to buy green energy? And you switch from your regulated supply through BG&E or Pepco, and you switch to a third-party supplier.
And what are the pros and cons of doing that?
I think the pros are for people who are, I call them super organized people that like energy, understand energy rates, track contracts. There is a slight opportunity to save on your utility bill. By and large, though, the data is extremely clear. Since 2010, the majority of us aren't very good at any of those things. And in our state, consumers have spent $1 billion more for choosing third-party energy, electricity, and gas.
$1 billion more? That's unbelievable. How do they wind up paying so much?
The primary reason is that while the sale seems just like I'll just sign my name on an e-tablet, consumers are actually signing a pretty long contract that is generally a teaser rate, one of those low promo rates that quietly changes to a variable rate. Variable means it can change at any time. And what everybody who's watching this needs to know is that third-party energy rates are not regulated by our Public Service Commission like BG&E and Pepco rates. So you've basically given away many, many consumer protections by checking that box off at Sam's Club and really setting it and forgetting it and not tracking the contract, which sounded neat. It was maybe half a penny lower when you bought it, and 3, 6, 12 months later, you're paying rates that are super high. And to be honest, very, very few people can tell me what supply rates are. There are 10 cents right now for electricity. Supply is running around 50 to 75 cents for gas. That changes every month. So a very unique law that opened up a lot of openings for some pretty deceptive practices. And the data shows people aren't getting it and they're overpaying on their energy bills. So at AARP, we've had a campaign for 2 years that's just check your bill. Just put it on your to-do list. Check your utility bill. If you don't get it, talk to a child, a junior warden at church, anybody good with numbers. Just pull out your actual bill, not just the summary on your e-billing, and check your bill for third-party suppliers. So,
all right, that's a convoluted looking bill. Where do you look on there? What are you looking for?
so this is my BG&E utility bill. And if you look to the right of the circles, that's electricity and gas. Right here is your supplier, and it should read, well, it's either going to read BG&E, or if you see any other energy company name on here, the big ones are Constellation, Direct Energy, Just Energy, Tomorrow Energy, IDT Energy. You get it. That means that your account has been switched to a third-party supplier.
Karen, do you know anybody who has switched? I'll admit that, and actually I don't think I'm admitting anything. It was a good deal. I took an offer for airline miles, and the deal was it was going to be a fixed rate for a period of 3 months, at which point you could switch back to the default utility rate, which I did. So my takeaway was I got some airline miles, and you know, I've done enough reporting on it to know that you got to be really wary of the variable rates.
Yes, I know someone who was almost caught in this trap, and that would be me, Jeff, because I'll never forget one day when I was distracted doing something else, and two angelic-faced-looking salespeople showed up at my front door and said, well, gee, would you like to have greener energy? And, you know, maybe you can change to our third-party supplier. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And as I was walking back to my computer, it suddenly hit me, what am I doing? I shouldn't be doing this now. I need to think about this. And I probably don't really want to change. So I went back to the door and I said, nah, I changed my mind. But I came that close to just inadvertently because they were just lovely young ladies and I was, you know, thinking about something else and I was just in the mood to say yes, which is what they're hoping for, right, Laurel?
Yeah, and I don't want to leave the impression that green energy is bad or that nobody should sign up for it. Laurel, are there conditions under which somebody who believes in green energy can sign up for it without the risk of getting a crazy bill at some point?
There's two things to know about green, renewable, third-party supply. The first thing to know is all of these variable rate issues exist on green energy supply. The second one is kind of tricky, but very interesting, is that you're actually not paying for wind energy created out of a wind turbine in Pennsylvania and dumped into our grid. You're actually paying for a product called a renewable energy certificate. And that right there, if you don't know that, that's something I would write down and say, is that really what I want to be buying? And they're not local renewable energy certificates. They're actually, the majority of them, like 99%, are cheap renewable energy certificates from Texas, wind farms built 20 years ago. So it's a product that sounds great and could be great if it was regulated better and standardized, but it's often not what people think. And what's more important, Jeff, that's not what they were marketed. Believe me, I've been doing this for a while. They were sold, hey, you're buying renewable electricity. And that's just not the case. So,
Laurel, before we go, there was one other point I wanted to be sure to get to, and that was your advice to never show the salesperson your actual utility bill. Why is that?
So in order to switch, a salesperson needs to find this little teeny choice ID. As you can see, I've marked mine out. A choice ID is almost like the social security number of your utility account. Suppliers need that number in order to switch your account from regulated to a supplier. I've seen many times, and anecdotally, so I work out in the field 2 hours a week and help families with their BG&E bills at Gedco Cares. And they'll just show their utility bill to a salesperson who may not be on the up and up, and they'll switch it without that person really understanding what's happening. So never, ever show your utility bill to anybody. Because once your number's out there, just so you know, many of the salespeople that come to your door, they actually work for multiple companies. They're outsourced direct sales folks from Baltimore. Baltimore City is the real target here. There's vast data that shows these door salesmen focus on low-income zip codes in our state, and they are charging a lot more to low income. So there's a lot of room for improvement in this market.
Karen, what's the best way for viewers to get more information on this whole field of energy choice?
Well, you can certainly go to aarp.org and look for resources. AARP advocates on behalf of consumers. We make sure that we try to make sure the utilities are billed in a fair and transparent manner. You can also contact the customer service line for your particular utility. Pepco has one, BG&E has one, the other utilities have one. And one other thing I want to point out, Jeff, is that here's a big difference between the third-party world and the regulated utility world. As somebody who gets her energy from a regulated utility, if my utility, which happens to be Pepco, wants to change its rates, there are hearings. There's a determination by the Public Service Commission as to whether Pepco gets that authority to raise my rates, and then I get the rate. That's it. I don't have a choice about paying that rate as long as I'm in the Pepco services area. But there are hearings and there's fair notice about that. With a third-party energy supplier, once that contract ends, and like Laurel said, if you've signed up inadvertently for variable rates, that rate could change and you may not be aware of it at all. And there are no hearings, there's no discussion, it's just the rate, and that third-party supplier will charge what they think the market will bear. So unless you change that supplier, then you're going to be getting that rate.
Very good. Karen Morgan, Laurel Peltier with AARP Maryland. Thank you both for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome. Thanks.